At it again with another Palette member spotlight. And this, my friends, is Hannah Smith, the one and only Hannah Smith with just one N. Um, and she is the most recent author. She's now you're a lot of things, multi hyphenate, right? But
Yes,
most
multi-hyphenate.
recently, you are a successful author of your own memoir called "I Am Enough," and I have lent this book, like, this is going on 3 times now,
Aw,
because I think honestly the cover of the book, which I should have you probably have a
that's all
copy. I could
right.
just
I
show
got it
you.
right here.
It's so beautiful, and I
Thank you.
think that it's just really just a tip of the iceberg taste of what the book is about, and what it is striving to help people realize in themselves as they read the book. So anyway, go ahead and introduce yourself. I don't know if I'd said all the things. I would love for everyone to hear from you about who you are and what you're working on.
Well, thank you. That is a wonderful introduction, first of all. Thank you for that. So, hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Smith. I am formerly a PR executive. So, I worked in public relations for about 15 years and was very proud of the work that I did. I worked with nonprofits and foundations ranging from, reproductive justice to climate change to criminal justice reform, just to name a few. And like I said, I was very proud of the work that I did, but I wasn't particularly proud to work. And so I decided to take a break. I came up with a plan for myself, really give myself space to figure out and create what's next for me. And that time and space, this idea was born to write this book, I Am Enough. And I was really fortunate that in that time I was speaking to a number of women of color, speaking to a number of women in my life who really inspired the book, because we were having all these conversations about, how do I carve out the time? How do I carve out the space? And how do I create the emotional, mental, and financial freedom to be able to make these kinds of big life and work changes for myself? Because they were wondering, like, how did you do this happen for yourself? And so through those conversations, I started writing it down, what we were talking about, and put it together in this book that really is part and part guidebook, because it's not very intentionally. I wanted it to be a really authentic and honest first person account. So it's not, do this or do that. It's just full of my own experiences and then sort of practical sort of takeaways and resources that folks can use as they see fit, depending on where they're at potentially in their own, work and life journey. So that's where I'm
Yeah,
at
and
now. Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
Yeah.
I think it's really it's easier said than done, right? To just literally step away from your work so that you can focus on documenting this piece of your life. And hopefully there'll be more books to come. But I know I'm putting the cart for the horse. But I just want to talk to you about, and you to speak to, the emotional work that you had to do
Mm.
to give yourself permission to step away. And I know this is like something, you had to have hard conversations with your partner, and you had to have hard conversations with yourself. um, to really, and I know it's also like, maybe some privilege, right? That you have to reward yourself to say, you know what, I have the opportunity to do this. It's important. And then the other part of it is like sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's thing that happens overnight by any means. Something that I talk about very clearly is that giving myself the financial to walk away from my job without another job lined up, when it realistically was 5 years in the making. That really decided to shift my relationship to my finances, to the time where to give myself enough of that financial runway to walk away. You talk about the emotional piece and working through, what am I with work, because I really identified myself with my work, and that, hard worker, the person that was always first there, last out, and that person that had and was going to continue to climb the corporate ladder. So having the physical space from work actually allowed me to tackle more of the emotional hurdles, I would say, of seeing kind of work as my sole identity. So I think gifting myself that space was a huge piece of it. And the journey really, one was kind of going from standing up for my value in the workplace. There was some push and pull happening around time, around compensation, around promotion, and things that really was clear in handling with my employer. Here's the value I bring, and if I'm not going to be, compensated as well as tied according to that value in the job description, etc., I will need to look elsewhere. And was very with them about that, very upfront. I really pride myself and want to hold myself accountable to having those honest and candid conversations with people to give them a fair chance in those kind of interactions. But ultimately, just needing for my value in leaving and giving myself the space, and then in leaving and how to really work through my relationship to work, creating new ways to choose myself. That's one of the things that I talk about a lot, is what's one thing you can do every day, because there's so much. And I think, in particular, I hear this a lot, women, is not only putting work first, but putting our families first, putting other people, how many other people do you put first before you choose yourself? And it sounds simple and so easy, like do one thing every day to choose yourself. But when you really start to look at it, it's shocking how difficult that can be sometimes, where that's just like, I'm going to take a 15-minute walk outside that's just for me, and absolutely no one else. It's not while I'm answering emails, I'm not talking on the phone, doing a work call, anything. It's just for me in my headspace. And to start to build up those new, not like giant routines, but just to build up those small habits, to choose myself on a daily basis, and to give myself more of that physical freedom, to as you mentioned, just shift my connection to work and the value that I kind of placed on work and community.
And the other point that I can't help but noticing is how you demonstrate this and model this to other women, is one of, I just think is so profound and important for us to see other women doing this. And for me personally, I think a lot about what am I modeling for my daughters, and what am I modeling for the other people that are around me. They need to see me taking a break. They need to see me being unapologetic about doing me first. And I know that this is maybe a broken record, but when you're on the plane, it's like, it's so counterintuitive to take care of ourselves before we take care of someone else, that they have to actually remind us every time we get on a plane to put the mask on yourself before you put the mask on your children. And it just occurred to me recently, how isn't that crazy that they have to, that's like in the checklist, because it's something that when there is an emergency or something, it's not the first thing that we think to do, is to support ourselves first. So it's like human nature for us to care for others, and then it's also these social constructs that are created, especially in this country, that it's selfish to take care of yourself, or it's selfish not to care for others, first and foremost. And I have the whole conundrum of being a mom and having that responsibility, which is just a whole other layer of guilt. So I just think You really inspired me by doing this work, and I got to see you day in, day out.
Mhm.
You came to Palette, you wrote the book a lot of the book at Palette.
Yeah.
And it was so important for me to see someone else doing this work, and
Mhm.
it was inspiring. Like, you absolutely can carve out time for yourself. You absolutely can hold yourself accountable. Um, when so for me, it's like I have to be backed into a corner to do this kind of work. But you, again, maybe that is what you did. You kind of backed yourself into a corner where you gave yourself no other alternative but to write this book, because you had kind of like advocated for yourself, and that's what led you having this time. But then
Mhm.
you did do it, right? It wasn't like you just went and found another job, or started to put yourself in that direction of finding something else that was going to compensate you. And instead you were like, no, you know what? This is what I'm going to do now. And I think it was just so, I used to get giddy every time I would come into Palette and you were there writing this book. I mean, not great. It's like you wrote it at Palette, but also it's like, here is someone who is not just talking about advocating for yourself, and not just talking about doing the
Mhm.
self-care, not just talking about putting yourself first, but you, like, were demonstrating it day in, day out. And that was just made such an impact on me personally.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that. It was, such a wonderful, and I just want to jump back really quick and acknowledge you for modeling that for your daughters, because I think that that is something that is huge. What we see in our mothers, what we see in the women in our life, or just any other kinds of role models in our life, what they do for themselves, what they're willing to do for themselves, and the healthy boundaries they're willing to, you know, not just set up, but also maintain for themselves, just speaks volumes. And it's so interesting because I really noticed, I don't have that experience of having children, but workplace, just noticing that as soon as I took a stand for myself and time, the other women around me then also started to stand up for themselves and their time, because I I will cover for you, take your vacation, make sure that you're getting the rest you need. But it wasn't until I started to shift my behavior and model that other people started to, quote, give themselves permission to do that too. So, it's really wonderful to see. But to actually writing the book and that whole process, it was, it is tough, was tough, and is tough to continue to hold yourself accountable to yourself. And it's part, it's kind of in everything we do. It's in boundaries, it's in projects we want to do, it's in, side hustles, anything that's sort of this passion project that only you are going to, carve out the time for, stake a claim for your time, and keep a commitment. It's not easy, but the reward has just been the greatest gift. Because it was me showing up at Palette pretty much every single day, maybe taking a few breaks here and there to go. Pretty much, showing up and treating my work, my passion project, like a job, and doing it myself. And I do things that are just for ourselves. And it was my greatest hope that this wouldn't just be for me, that it would be for other people too. But those things that are just for ourselves, I think, can be really difficult, stake a claim for and keep a commitment to, but are the things that are just so completely worth that time and dedication. And I'm so grateful to have, Palette as a backdrop to that, but also, you, Marcella, Jess, and so many others. And I still remember the day I finished writing the book. You were there because it was late at night. We both just happened to be late, working late. And I, poked my head and I was like, Catherine, can I just celebrate with you for a second? I have some really big news. I just writing my book, and to be able to, jump up and down together and hug, just celebrate that moment after, you and Palette have just been really this whole journey was really incredible to have that come full circle.
Yeah, no, it was, I still remember that. I'll never forget that moment when you came in, and I can't even remember. What's so interesting is I can't even remember what I was working on at the time, because because you are literally what took over that moment. So I appreciate you being able to, like, you were there for that. So thank you. I mean, I was there for
Thank
that.
you.
You know what I mean?
I know.
And so the other thing I wanted to chat with you about is the notion that a lot of times as women, we're like, oh, we'll take the time off because we're gonna
Mhm.
stay home with the kids, right? Again, I thought it was so powerful because you're not waiting to have kids or waiting for some other thing to take your time away. It was you. You were like, this is what I'm working on, and this is the thing. It's not like another project. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of times we kind of do that. So I just wanted to speak to that. So I also wanted to talk to you about why you joined Palette, what you got out of it, and more about that story too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where do you want me to start? Because I'm happy to jump into the palette piece too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, tell us why you joined Palette and what you got out of it.
Perfect. So I originally joined Palette as a founding member. So before you all had even opened your first set of doors on Broadway, which is incredible to think back on now, given what's happened and evolved since then with the Broadway locations and also the location. But I was working from home at the time. So my employer at the time was actually based in DC, moved up to Saratoga Springs in 2016. And during that time had sort of been going between spaces, co-working spaces, because nothing like Palette existed at the time. And so what a member at another co-working space and was so excited because I read about Palette, and I forget if it was Saratoga Magazine, Saratoga Living, wherever it was. I just remember reading about it and immediately being like, I need to be a part of this. How do I get in contact with them? And reaching out to you. And it was so funny because I didn't even know it at the time. But Marcella and I had met when I first moved to Saratoga. And so just immediately I was like, oh, this is so meant, like, I'm meeting you and then Marcella again. And it's just like, this is it. Where do I sign? Because the idea behind the whole thing just completely drew me in, and love being a part of the community because it is so welcoming and so just like, it's the only co-working space I've ever been a part of where people weren't just there to get away from their homes and do work, be quiet, stay in their lane, and just like that was sort of the vibe of the other co-workers I was a member of. And the community, I love, really this Palette community, such a key word, because this community of individuals so accepting, so here for it, and so celebratory and willing to help for every member of the community. And I will say, and an extension of that too, because I feel like anyone who comes in, for the day or sort of like a friend, it's just like the more the merrier. And it's wonderful to be a part of that. And, I just love the kind of openness, enthusiasm, and also I will say the realness too, that everyone brings to the table, because I think one is so willing to give their time, give their feedback, give ideas, and also just kind of immediately be vulnerable and real in conversation, which is rare. It's something even that my husband Colin, I brought him to, well, a number of events at this point, but one of the first events that he came to, he was just like, this was the best. There was no smoke. Everyone just jumped right in, shared what they were working, digging talked about what they like therapy that day, talked about this amazing business they were launching, like just that realness conversation and individuals continues to just be one of the things that is so energizing about being a part of Palette.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that a lot of people say, and it's hard for others to understand or comprehend the reality of that until they come to an event or they come to a space or they are, just they're jumping into working with us to, advance themselves. And because I get that question all the time, like, what is it about Palette? Like, I don't understand. And it's like, well, it's a community, and it's ever evolving based on who the people are that make up the group, and what their goals are and what their intentions are. And what I really think that what I really feel confident in that created this the way it is now is that we started from the ground up. We really welcome people into the community before the space was even built out. And having them come along for the ride and the highs and the lows, and we talk about it all. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. I mean, there are a lot of difficult conversations that we're having with one another. I mean, I just had a very difficult conversation with Marcella this morning, but that's like what it is all about. Is like, how do we navigate this in a real authentic way, but from a place of kindness and positivity. But a lot of us are dealing with like some really hard things, and so it's how do we navigate that together. And for me, on a personal level, I struggle with doing things on my own because it's just not as much fun, and it's not as engaging when you feel isolated and alone and you're the only one dealing with a certain thing. It's like at Palette, it's everybody's goal, it's everybody's problem, and we all get through it together. So it's been so rewarding for me just to be part of it. And then the other piece of it too is that like I don't have like on my vision board or in my mindset of whatever that I'm ever going to write a book, but because you have, I feel so tied to that goal. And so I feel like I've accomplished something too, just by, being in the know and in the vicinity of you experiencing that. So the shared experience is huge at Palette. And I think that that's the most exciting thing for me is to kind of like just experience alongside somebody else's goal and their accomplishments. It's so much fun.
I love that. It's that's its own reward for me, honestly. And I didn't have this on my vision board either. I had no idea. It really was, I wanted to make sure that when I left my job, that I was really intentional about not running away from something. That I was really like running toward whatever with just like full energy, full enthusiasm. And at the time I thought that was going to be another traditional job. I did. And which I know from our relationship and from the book itself. And it wasn't until a couple months into the process that really this idea struck, and it just was this thing that took hold of me. And I knew that if I didn't do it, that I would regret it. And ultimately, that was the thing. That was the threshold for me, was if I don't, regardless of what happens, if I don't, going to regret it. And so I have to do it. And so to hear that inspiration, because your story is incredible. And I know that I've only heard an iota of it. And so just more.
Also the thing is though, it's like we're doing a lot of the same, it's a different project, right? But it's still saying like, I have more fear of not doing this and not putting it out into the world the way I see it in my head than I do about what anyone will think if I do it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that you experience that exact same, journey is like, I'm really big on saying, like, if I'm going to say I'm going to do something, it's I can't look at myself in the mirror until I get it done. So, and I am very, very driven by the fear of regret and like, being on my deathbed and saying like, I didn't write that book I said I was going to write, or I didn't, start that community that I wish I had in my life, So again, it's like modeling what you want for the future and and doing the thing, just doing the damn thing that you said you were going to do. It's huge.
Absolutely. And not diminishing that. Like if I'm to you said, I want this community. And to know strongly enough that like, if I want this, then other people probably want too. And to really like trust in yourself, like not just to have that, like if I, that drive, which is so key. And to have that feeling like if I'll regret it. But then also to just make it happen is really incredible. And so acknowledge that too, because it takes, it does take a lot, but I think, just showing what you've created, in a matter of years, what I've been focused on again in just a matter of years, and not even that long, starting to write the book, quite frankly, just again goes to show that if you give yourself that, space and grace to follow that drive, to follow those things inside you that say, I need to do this, really be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could talk to you forever about all these things. And again, I'm so proud of you. You absolutely did the damn thing, and it's just so cool to have watched you, witnessed you doing it. It's awesome. So tell everyone about an event that we have coming up on April 20th. Book signing, selling some books, I think, right?
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate. So it will be a breakfast and a book launch celebration, book signing, and also a chance to just get into it and have a conversation. So we'll have a little bit of a conversation and then an opportunity for live audience Q&A. We talk about having these spaces. We are vulnerable and honest at Palette. So this is a space for people to not only, come and celebrate me in terms of into the world and have some yummy breakfast, but also to be able to, ask candid questions and get into together, and in brave space.
Yes, I love that. I love that. A brave space. I'm gonna start using that. Well, thank you so much. If anyone wants to buy this book, you can buy it on Hannah. Is it Hannah?
Thank you.
HannahSmith.com
Yes.
with one N. And then I'm sure you're selling on Amazon too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So
awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. You can follow Hannah on Instagram at Hannah R. Smith, or go to her website, www.hannah, HannahSmith.com, Hannah Smith with just one N, and get in contact with her. Buy this damn book. It's amazing. Lend it to your friends. It's just an incredible, inspiring, and like tactful book that you can like really workbook through too. So that's what's really cool about it. And thank you so much, Hannah, for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything. It was great chatting. And thank you folks who joined.